Tell me that. चलिए, हेलो, हाँ ठीक है। आ रही बात? मेरी ये शर्ट आपकी कैसी लग रही है? वाह बढ़िया, मेरी आपकी शर्ट एक जैसी है। चलिए, ये तो सही है। हाँ So in the last lecture we were discussing about Karl Marx, and the basics we have discussed, as in we have discussed the means and mode of production, and we have had a basic discussion of what precisely happened when there is a struggle in the society. And as per Marx, everything in the society is about class struggle and class struggle alone, nothing else. Know this thing? No? Yes? No? Okay. Do you have access to the previous classes? You won't be having. Okay, I'll tell them, they'll give you the access to previous classes, then you can. We will start from, for today's lecture, and we have to start from stratification. Marxist theory of social stratification. Have you ever heard about the word strata? Have you ever heard about the word strata? Have you heard people at the bottom of the strata, something like this? Have you ever heard this word, that people from the bottom strata of the society? Yeah, I heard this word. Okay, so might be also rest of the people might have heard about the word strata. In the phrase, as in people from the bottommost strata of the society, basically trying to signify those people who are at the lowest of the low, okay, who are the most poverty ridden people. Now, stratification is Marxist idea, which is very generic concept. It says that, look, society is divided like this whole thing. If it's society, it is divided into various levels. Okay, these can be called as classes, or these can also be called as different strata. Okay, these are divided on the basis of your economic capability, your level of education, as well as your social standing. Neither one alone neither any one of it alone can define it. Okay, all of them combinedly have to play a role in defining which strata you belong to. Suppose there is someone who is economically very prosperous, extremely prosperous, okay, but he is from a scheduled caste, or he is from scheduled tribe. Okay, you know that our society still judge that person. Okay, so for example, I was looking this thing 2 days back, and there's an actor, Pankaj Tripathi. So he was giving an interview, and he was like, there was a role he had to be casted for, and that role was of a billionaire. And then the casting director said that, Mr. Tripathi, you don't look like a billionaire. So he was like, have you ever seen Mukesh Ambani? Does Mukesh Ambani looks like a billionaire? Okay, so what happens? Right from your looks, your race, your caste, everything matters, and everything combinedly put you in a strata. Okay, strata could also be called as a class. Okay, alone one thing will not define, although, but Marx have focused on 3 things: economy, okay, education, and social standing. Okay, economy, education, and social standing, or basically you can say occupation. Okay, these 3 things which defines your strata combinedly. There are other things also. Marx, since we are focusing on Marxist theory of stratification, how this class is decided, so we are focusing on this. Okay, now if you'll see, you have the handouts. No, yes, I'll get you the print out दे दी. week number 4. So on the PDF it's on page number 16. Okay, got it? Page number 16. 16, yeah, 166. Okay. Hi Walter. So now, so who has defined it? Marx, and along with Marx the other person was Friedrich Engels. Okay, these are two people who have extended whatever Marx has written, they always with the support and help of Friedrich Engels. Okay, now you need to understand that we have studied two of the main works in which in all conditions you have to remember whenever you are reading about Marx. One is Capital, which is called as Das Kapital. It's a German word, therefore we call it Das Kapital. In English we only call it capital. Das is basically German word for the capital, fine. And the second book is Communist Manifesto. Okay, the third work where he had discussed about stratification is the German Ideology. Okay, these are the three books. The German Ideology is the oldest work of Marx. He has written it in somewhere in 1846. Then Communist Man, you don't have to write these things, these are there already in handout. Then after German Ideology 1846, he wrote the Communist Manifesto 1848, and then in 1867 he wrote Capital, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. Now you focus on this thing. When we are defining the stratification, okay, we have to, okay, so you can use either word, either class or strata, it's totally acceptable. Now there are 4 theories which define these stratification things, okay? And these 4 theories again are simple, not very difficult. Okay, here, base and superstructure theory, class conflict theory, mode of production theory, and labor theory of value. Okay, all these 4 theories one has to remember. The 4 theories which consider Marxist theory of social stratification, these are the 4 concepts which one has to be aware of. Now what is the base and superstructure theory? Base and superstructure theory says, and we have discussed this thing in previous lectures, but let me just do it again. Everything, like anywhere, if you see any structure, like a new building is being formed, you will see there is a foundation and then there is a superstructure. What the part we are standing in is basically the superstructure. There is going to be a foundation beneath this building. The real reason why this building is standing is the foundation. Okay, this is a basic concept everyone should be aware of. Okay, now similarly Marx says that the society is also like this. There is a real reason and then there is a visible thing. So the visible thing will be always superstructure. The society also has base and the superstructure. Base is basically the foundation. Okay, so Marx says that there is a base and there is a superstructure. Okay, superstructure. Now we have discussed means of production. Okay, that is, for example, suppose if you have to, suppose in the previous lecture I have defined that suppose I have to start a factory to make chairs. Okay, what all things I need? I need steel, I need leather, I need a chair maker. I can't make chair, so I need someone who is capable of making chair. Then I need money, because first of all I need to pay this person both for the raw material and also for making the chair. Okay, so I need raw material, I need a laborer who will actually work on it, I need money, and finally I need myself who is going to have this idea I should have a chair, or I should make a chair, or I should make a factory of chair, and then I should sell a chair. So basically, you first of all, in the modern 21st century, back in the day this word was not used, but from the 21st century standard, we will say we need a entrepreneur who will come up with the idea. Then we need the labor. Then we need the finances or the capital. And finally, we need the raw material which will be required. Okay. Now, in different cases, different things are there. For example, suppose there is a something else. If instead of a chair we want to make a laptop, the raw material will change. Okay, the working force will change. Instead of laborer, will use a better sophisticated work, we'll say the technician or something. But basically it's the same guy who's working. We also again need capital, and we again need the one guy who came up with this idea that I have to make this laptop or this computer or whatever, right? So all these people are essential. Okay, even if one thing goes away, the whole structure will fall down. Any product, any good won't be created if even one thing is not there, right? So therefore you will see that the base require all the four means of production. Okay, means of production. And therefore base consists of these means of production. So everyone in the society, the working class, the capitalist class, both of them are part of the base structure. Okay, so that means actually the industrial laborer, the farmer, and even Mr. Mukesh Ambani is part of the base structure because they play a role. If all this is base structure, then what is superstructure? People work in this, people work as a worker, so people are also part of base structure. Some people don't work as a worker, some people work as somewhere else. So these things are base structure as per Marx. Okay, what is superstructure? Superstructure is things which are more of a facade, basically दिखावे वाली चीजें, ऐसे समझो. Okay, those things which are not that important but still are there. Okay, and that is how superstructure is seen. Okay, so Marx says, for example, temple, school, media, these are all superstructure. Media houses, what media houses do? Frankly, think about it for a moment. What good is added by the media houses to your life? Have any iota of benefit has been achieved by you or reaped by you by watching Sudhir Chaudhary or Arnab Goswami or Ravish Kumar? Fine. Or, for example, frankly speaking, if you'll go as per Marx, Marx will say that even the colleges, schools are also superstructure. Now, when he's saying college and school, he doesn't mean that college and schools are like no good and therefore they are in superstructure, but there is a different reason. I'll come to it. Marx goes to such an extent that he says that even the whole government itself is a superstructure. Fine. Your religion, your faith is also superstructure. That is also not the essentiality, it is just there. And then he says that there is a connection between the base and the superstructure. And the connection is such that base actually guides the superstructure. Marx says that ultimately in the society, only that thing happens which the base wants to happen. Fine. So now let's implement this thing. What all things we have said that there is in superstructure? Government. What all things? Other religion, schools, colleges. And what are in base structure? The working class, the capitalist class. Fine. Now understand this thing. Do you think if farmers will come on the road, government will accept their demands? Yes, they have to. Like sometimes takes like 2 years, 3 years, but ultimately they do. So when the base comes out, the superstructure has to accept. When Mukesh Ambani wants something to happen, it happens because effectively he is also the base. Okay, we don't like that thing, but he is the base. He is part of the base. So Marx says when the base wants something, that thing will happen because effectively the base guides the superstructure. It is the foundation which decides how strong the superstructure is going to be. Okay, your house foundation has to be the decision maker, how good your building will be effectively. Fine. That is where we are coming from. That is the concept of base and superstructure that Marx said. Now we will see that over the period of time, other scholars have criticized it also. Like there is a scholar whose name is Antonio Gramsci, and Gramsci says that that is not true. This thing is not true. This is not how it happens. And what Gramsci says? Gramsci says that it might have been true when Marx was alive, When Marx wrote this thing in 1867, then it might have been true that the base was really powerful. But over the period, what we have seen is the superstructure has become so powerful. For example, you see your religion. As per Marx, religion is superstructure. So it should be the will of either the capitalist class or the working class which should decide the religion. But we have seen, for the reasons of religion, both the capitalist class and the working class has to submit to it. So that also happens. Then we have just said that okay, media is a superstructure, but then we also see that it is media which is relaying the narrative in the society. Okay, effectively how you are going to think 10 days from now. Okay, I'll give you an example. Back in 2015, obviously you people must have been like very young, but 2015 I was preparing back then, and India-Pakistan relations were not really good. Okay, and all of a sudden Prime Minister Modi landed in Pakistan to meet Nawaz Sharif. It's Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's wedding or something was there, and his birthday was also there. He just landed in there, and then there was some bonhomie, and within a week Nawaz Sharif sent a sari for the Indian Prime Minister's mother, and all the news channels was, and it seemed like all news channels were showing as if like okay, these two guys are like the bros. Okay, like the best friends, Nawaz Sharif and Narendra Modi, and everyone was like till like 2 months back we were fighting like anything, but within 10 days the discussion on the roadsides and everywhere in the society was like, but effectively they are also people only. So it doesn't take more than a week or 10 days or 2 weeks. Like right now there is a crisis going on in Bangladesh. Okay, if you go just like in January 2024, the generic population of Bangladesh didn't have that much angst against India which they have right now. Okay, so it didn't take more than 6 months. Okay, so what is happening? The media is carrying the narrative. So here what is saying, that's something institution, because media is also an institution. An institution of the superstructure is capable enough to influence the base structure. Fine, but this is a criticism which comes later on, so not at this point. So we will talk about that later on, but this very thing you need to understand, what is base and what is superstructure. Okay, and that is the first theory, because unless and until you know what is base and what is superstructure, then that's the very first stratification of the society. That the first of all, before even the whole concept of the poor class and the middle class and the upper class, we go into the concept of the first stratification is a twofold stratification, superstructure and base structure. Fine, so that's the first theory. The second theory, and here it's written, it's a way of understanding how society is organized and structured. According to this theory, society is divided into two parts, the economic base and the superstructure. Okay, now class conflict theory, the second theory. Okay, class conflict theory. This is even interesting, more interesting. It says that if you will see, society is divided into different classes with conflicting interest all the time. Okay, if you are from different class, you will have different interest for sure. Okay, and so whatever you see the social differences in the society is basically because of this struggle between the classes. Now let me explain this thing to you, that the demands of the people, like for example, let me tell you this. Okay, do you use Zomato or Blinkit or Swiggy, something like that? Yeah. So if you would see, the prices of products on Swiggy or Blinkit or something like that is higher than what you will get on Amazon. Always. If you'll just check it simultaneously, you'll find that the prices of products on Blinkit and Swiggy will be higher than on Amazon. Why? Why? You're not buying in bulk even on Amazon. You can also purchase a single thing, but still will be cheaper. the companies have realized, okay, that those people who are using apps like Blinkit, Swiggy, their main objective is quick and fast delivery. Okay, those people who are buying from Amazon at this particular time, in like long back, the basic idea was for ease people were using apps or online things, but now that is not the thing. Everyone is using it. Now the thing is, for quickness, people are using Swiggy or Blinkit or something like that. And those people who have ease of kal aayega, will get it tomorrow, day after tomorrow, they are using Amazon. So now the main term is not the cheapness or how cost effective you can be, how time effective you can be. That is the new currency here. Okay, so how the companies are deciding? So the companies have further made a stratification. Okay, and they have found out that people above a certain living standard, people who earn above a certain living standards, they need time efficiency on and above the cost effectivity. Is it making sense? आपके लिए पैसा बचाना जरूरी नहीं है, आपके लिए जरूरी ये है कि टाइम बच जाए. ठीक है. Now how this has been decided? This has been decided by looking at the buying pattern and all, but that is their analysis, that is a different thing. You need to focus here. By making this analysis, they are now able to divide you or rest of the people in two different brackets. Okay, so a stratification has been done. Now there will be there are two groups. One for whom the time is more important, one for whom the money is more important. Now there will be a consistent struggle between these people. Obviously no one is going to say obviously, but there is a consistent struggle between these two people. Okay, for one people will say I'll pay 5 rupees more, but I need it 5 minutes quicker. The people will say okay, take 5 minutes extra, but give me 5 minutes for 5 rupees cheaper. Fine. So that struggle is even on merchandise level, and that is also a class conflict. Now this class conflict, which is evolving from the economic level, can then be evolved in the social sector also, because you will see, because of it, the societal behavior will also change. Okay, now your subconsciously over the period of time your behavior have changed. Okay, you need everything in 10 minutes. Okay, I know a friend of mine who just sold off his 300-liter fridge because he says like I'll get stuff, I'll keep like a 50-milliliter fridge, I'll get stuff quicker that way. Fine. So because of the economic differences, class conflict exists, and this class conflict can lead to social differences or social behavioral differences also. That is what is written or explained by class conflict theory, that there will always be class differences. And I just gave you one example which is most acceptable or explainable in this time, but similarly there will be class conflict on all the level all the time. Okay, this Swiggy Zomato thing is just one example, there will be a lot of that. Fine. So you see, it argues that society is divided into different classes with conflicting interests, and that social stratification is a result of struggle between these classes for power and resources. Mode of production theory. It argues that the way goods are produced and distributed is the key determinant of social relations, and that each stage of development is characterized by its own set of class relations. Now, the mode of production we have defined in the previous lecture, and we have seen that when the whole world was established, it was considered that it was a primitive communism. Now, primitive communism is a concept which says that everyone was living in a forest, and neither you were expecting anything from me and nor I was expecting anything from you. It was a pretty easy thing. We were just going around and there's a tree, I'll just take the apple, I'll eat, I'll walk. So there was no issue between each other. Okay, so this is primitive communism, where the nature was capable of sustaining each and every one. Okay, and therefore there was a sense of equality. From primitive communism we went to the time when slavery existed. This was in the Greek period and the Roman period. From slavery we went to feudalism, where there were lands, piece of land and people associated with that piece of land, and then there was a authority who usually were called as a lord or something. From feudalism then we came to the modern times and we saw the evolution of capitalism in the modern industrial period. Now after capitalism, Marx says the next step will be socialism, and after socialism the next step will be communism, final, and that will be the effective system to reach the final stage. Okay, now when he says this, he says that there are different modes in different periods. Okay, now this is again something we have discussed in previous lecture. If you will go to previous page, here, page number 7. Okay, so there is a diagram, historical stages of society and associated mode of production. Okay, now mode of production theory is based on this concept. It argues that the way of goods is produced as well as distributed is the key determinants of social relation. Okay, is characterized by its own class relations, as in the relationship between different class were different in these periods. Means what? If you see, there was a complete equality even when there was primitive communism. Okay, because you were also taking apple from the tree, I was also taking apple from the tree. We both were dependent on the tree. Neither you were dependent on me nor I was dependent on you. So there was obviously going to be an equality. Then we went to a concept where slave labor was there, master-slave relation was there. So the slave was dependent on the master. Okay, and in a way master also had a responsibility in a sense towards the slave, so that relationship was there. Now that relationship is defined by what? The mode of production. So there has been stratification. The class division of the society can also be done on the basis of mode of production. That is what mode of production theory says. Fine. Now last theory which we have to discuss is labor theory of value. Labor theory of value. Now it argues that the value of a commodity is determined by the amount of labor that is required to produce it. Marx used this theory to explain why working class is exploited by ruling class. Now let me explain this thing to you. Suppose Marx says what? Like suppose in normal day what happened? In normal day, let's take the example of the chair, back, the same chair. So you are the guy, okay, who decided that I have to make a chair. Fine. So you procured the raw material, you have the capital, and you called in a laborer. And this guy now is a chair maker. Now you will provide him the raw material and make a chair. Now you tell him that for making this chair, I will give you 1000 rupees. And almost 1200 rupees was cost of the raw material which was used in making this chair. So effectively, this chair costed you 2200 rupees now. Now you will sell it in the market for 5000 rupees. Okay, so effectively you are making a 2800 rupee profit. Now you can say that look, it was my idea. I was the guy who took the risk. Okay, I was the guy who took the risk. It was my idea. I basically accumulated all the resources. Okay, and therefore I deserve these 2800 rupees. Marx will say that no, this is not how it happens. No one is denying your participation. But just like you are a stakeholder in making this chair, the laborer is also a stakeholder in making this chair. And the producer of raw material is also a stakeholder in making this chair. So just by paying one guy 1200 and one guy 800, you are not doing justice when you are selling it at 5000. There has to be an adequate distribution. Now Marx is not saying the basic idea with communism and Karl Marx is always like Karl Marx will say that everyone should get equal money. So Marx is not saying everyone has to get equal money. No. Like, but whatever it has to be decided already in advance. Okay. Just because you are paying that guy or you are telling that guy to make chair, his efforts now have been added. And while explaining this, Marx went to such an extent that he said that actually the profit is nothing but equivalent to the exploitation. Okay. So basically he is saying that whatever is going to be the price is going to be the price. Now whatever the difference between the selling price and cost price which you are taking on for your own as the capitalist is basically equivalent to the amount of exploitation. Okay. So by labor theory of value he comes to this idea only that what is the value of the labor has to be defined properly, and that can be defined by the cost he is actually paid plus the exploitation combined. This is the labor theory of value, right? These are the four concepts through which, because it's written here that why the working class is exploited by the ruling class and how surplus value is created. And by this value concept you again divide the society into the ruling class and the working class. So stratification can also be done by this method. So these are the four methods by which stratification is done. Now the concept I just told you about the base and the superstructure is basically made here in your diagram. So I kind of made it to give you an explanation. Now you can look into a handout also. Now if you see, kind of explain this thing only. The base, superstructure, base have means of production, those four things. Base also have relations of production. Okay, there is a relation maintenance of the base as well as the base shapes the superstructure, which I have told you. Now superstructure includes what? Your politics, your culture, your faith, your media, everything is in superstructure only. Now the superstructure refers to the political, legal and cultural institution that exist on the top of the economic base. This includes things like government, legal system, education and religion. Okay. Marxists believe that the economic base shapes the superstructure, meaning that the way goods are produced and distributed determines the way that society is organized and structured. Okay. So way goods are produced and distributed determine the way the society is organized, structured. Now let me explain this thing. This is not difficult, but understand this thing. Have you seen the very first class? In the very first class, the very first definition of politics I gave was by a scholar called as Harold Laswell. Now Laswell says that politics is all about the power to distribute resources. Okay, who is a politician? Who is doing this? Okay. So in modern times, what is politics? Politics, the easiest thing is define is the power to distribute resources. That is what politics is, because that is the most acceptable thing. We see how politics is effective in the society in the democratic sense. Okay, what other work politicians do? Explain me what other job politicians have. Nothing. There is certain search of resources which are here. Everyone wants that resources to be given to them. The job politicians have at hand is to meet everyone, to understand everyone, and then decide who is in the dire need of certain resources, and then who will be the most beneficial for the whole society if the resources are allotted to them. Fine, that's the only job they have, and that is how politics is defined. Now Marx also says because the distribution of resources are so important, so basically how the resources have been distributed is going to decide what is going to happen in the society. Suppose one community or one caste or one race is given more resources than the other, then the society will have long-term impact. For example, if you see South Africa between 1910 or not 1959 and 1990, when South Africa was a apartheid state. You know about that apartheid state? Yes. So South Africa was an apartheid state. Okay, there was a white ruling elite and the native African people were kind of shelved on a side of the cities. Obviously, resources belong to the whole country. So even if immigrants are living there for a long period of time, the immigrants, the English immigrants or the European immigrants, they cannot have claim at in the maximum condition more than the natives. So one can even say, okay, fine, you are living here for 300 years or 400 years. So we'll say, okay, fine, you are almost like here only. Okay. But surely you cannot have more rights than the natives. In no much sense how long you have been staying here. But that is what was happening there. Because of this, what happened? The society became skewed. And in 1990, we saw what? That in the South African society, the Europeans who were European origin South Africans are far more richer even now than the natives. Okay, so why it happened? Because the state took a minted policy. State made a minted policy that the resource will be distributed in favor of the white folks, right? And that is exactly what Marx is saying. Although Marx was saying it long back, he said the way goods are produced and distributed determines the way the society is organized and structured. Now these kind of things are then evolved or implemented in the Soviet Union. For example, in a certain sense it was also implemented in India. For example, I still remember I was reading a book and it was written that in 1949 there was this guy who went to Jawaharlal Nehru and said that, sir, we want to open a soap making factory. Nehru was like, कितना साबुन बनाओगे? है तो साबुन, एक साबुन है, सब लोग नहा रहे हैं, इससे बढ़िया है. So I was like, no sir, there should be alternatives. Like, why you need alternatives and soaps? There's one brand of soap, it's fine. So because his orientation was that distribution, adequate distribution is much more important than giving options to people. Fine. So you need to understand where these people are coming from. Similar things you will see in Soviet Union. This was happening on much more and bigger level. We are just giving an example of soap, but for everything was there like this only. So that's an inherent feature of Marxism. In a capitalist society where means of production are owned by a smaller number of individuals, the political, legal and cultural institution will reflect the interests of the ruling class and serve to maintain the power. Now, have you for example, how it is explained? In a capitalist society where the means of production are owned by a small number of individuals, the political, legal and cultural institution will reflect the interests of the ruling class. Okay, let me give you an example of this. This is also going on internet, so please don't get me arrested. But anyway, have you watched the Ambani wedding? Is there anyone who hasn't watched it? I sometimes feel like guy bhi ghoom rahi hogi road pe. So even that cow must have watched the Ambani wedding. Someone must have shown the reel. Now, if you remember, and I'm pretty sure, although you are pretty young than me, but still, you must also have realized by now that Indian society from the outside always try to show that showing off is not a good thing. Don't you think that? Always being taught to us throughout our childhood that don't show off, don't wear flashy clothes. Even if you have a new toy, if you have a new school bag, if you have something new, a new something, anything, new bike or whatever, don't show it off to your friends, just like use it normally and all. But here all of a sudden, there was the bombastic way of show off to the whole world. And it was much appreciated by the society. It was not like very late. People started finally getting upset by it, but it was only because the wedding was going for 6 months. Okay, so they were like, if you go for 3 more months, there will be a kid also. So the whole idea is very simple, that initially people were really appreciative of it. How the hell it happened? It happens in a capitalist society when the cultural, legal and the structure of the society started taking initiatives to make something look good. Whether it is really good or not, it doesn't matter. You know, I know, everyone know that showing off materialistic wealth is something which is not appreciated in Indian society, period. no one in their right mind will say that Indian people appreciate showing material wealth. Okay, but it was done continuously, and it was continuously shown, and everyone was like, oh, this is cool, this is good. How it was acceptable? It was acceptable because the structure of the state was in line with what was being shown. This is how you explain. Okay, and this is what is basically you mentioned in the capitalist society happens. So that's what you know. Now, I have kind of explained what consists of economic base, that is factory, land, all those things. So it's written there. Okay. Following are the major modern post. Okay, so I just told you I gave you the example that how we have seen over the period of time superstructure now starting having effect on the base structure. So that criticism is written here. Following are the major modern and postmodern scholars who have analyzed the Marxist base and superstructure theory. Number 1, Antonio Gramsci. This is the very scholar who have underlined this idea that the superstructure over the period have become so capable, okay, that they have started affecting the base. For example, the culture. Usually we are saying economy is everything, but now we have seen culture is more important. Okay, culture is far more important. We have seen now, like you will see now at a lot of time. For example, Israel as a state. Okay, if you will see, so a lot of activities which Israel do or does make sense culturally. For that notion of an Israeli state to keep it there, it makes sense whatever they do, but neither economically nor politically it makes sense. Economically and politically speaking, it makes sense that they should have peace with the Palestinian people. Okay, but culturally it doesn't, and they are following the cultural norms. That shows that culture is something which is guiding their actions. So that shows that culture becomes important. Now these kind of things can be explained by Antonio Gramsci. So he says cultural and ideological practices, okay, in the superstructure are not simply determined by the base, but rather have their own logic which are evolved over the period of time. Fine. Now the second scholar, please cut this thing. This is by mistake only. This one line, just a word. This is the heading. Louis Althusser. Louis Althusser is again Marxist scholar. And he argued that the base and the superstructure are not simply connected by one-way causal relationship, but rather that the superstructure actively reproduces and maintains the existing economic relations of the base. As in, Louis Althusser is actually a hardcore Marxist scholar. Antonio Gramsci, the scholar we have just seen, this one, he is actually called as the neo-Marxist scholar. He is actually the father of neo-Marxism. Neo means new. So he is the guy who said that yes, Marx has contributed a lot, but there are certain things which Marx said back in the day which is unacceptable now. Okay, that is where he is coming from, Antonio Gramsci. Louis Althusser says that no, Marx is right only. Okay, and whosoever is saying anything against Marx is unable to understand Marx, and that's why he's saying so. So Althusser says that look, not only the base influences the superstructure, the base structure influences the superstructure, but the superstructure makes sure that the relationship is maintained in the same manner. Okay, so the superstructure also contribute, but what contribution is? Contribution is not to change the base, but contribution is to maintain that very relationship. So it is the base and superstructure relationship will be strengthened over the period of time. That is the observation of Louis Althusser. Now, Jean Baudrillard, French postmodernist scholar. Now, understand again, postmodernist scholar, I have explained it again and again in the class, but I'll just tell you. The postmodernist scholars are always of the opinion in the society that look, anything of certainty cannot be पक्का, like कुछ भी पक्का नहीं है, nothing is very certain, okay, like क्या ही है सच और क्या ही है झूठ, it's all your opinion and my opinion, that is all what is, okay? So Jean Baudrillard comes from that school, and therefore he says that Marxist distinction between base and superstructure, and argued that the distinction between economic and cultural practices have become blurred in the post-industrial society. So he says that this whole segregation which we have done, that what is base and what is superstructure, no more you can say that is so direct, because a lot of industrialists are there who also own media organization now. Then how? Okay, they influence the media also. So whether they are in base structure or in superstructure, same, like some industrialists are in base structure because they are industrialists. Okay, media houses are in superstructure, but there are industrialists who owns the media houses. So now where you are going to keep these industrialists, base structure or superstructure? Because the whole industry they own. Like for example, there is this guy Subhash Chandra. You know Subhash Chandra? No. You know Z TV? Z group of channels are there. Okay. The owner of Z group is, his name is Subhash Chandra. Okay. Now Mr. Subhash Chandra owns a queue of news channels and queue of TV channels. That's what his business is. Will you keep him in base structure or superstructure? Base, but his whole industry itself is in superstructure. So how he will be in base structure? Okay, so that these kind of things is Jean Baudrillard highlighted. Now you need to understand, you cannot say Marx was wrong, because when Marx was defining these things, these kind of complications were not even there. For example, tomorrow, where you are going to put the CEO of Netflix, base structure or superstructure? Because if you ask Marx, if somehow you make Marx research from dead and ask him, sir, what is Netflix? Part of base or superstructure? He will tell you it's superstructure. But then you will say that, okay, fine, so where we should keep the CEO of Netflix? Because for him it's a full-fledged company where he has involved, he has employees and everything. So why you are putting it in base structure? Superstructure should be in base structure. So these kind of differences are highlighted by Jean Baudrillard, who says that this division, this stratification itself is very wrong. You cannot so directly divide between things. Okay. So that's something which he highlighted. Michel Foucault, the second last guy, okay, he says that Michel Foucault is someone who has defined the concept of power. Now, regarding power, he had a very simple logic, and it's like this. Look, the simple sense of power is always the powerful will control the weak. This is a very generic standard logic, that whosoever has more power will control whosoever has less power. But do we always have this very relationship? No, there are different types of power. Okay, there is a physical power. Suppose you have a girlfriend, and I shouldn't say suppose, you should have a girlfriend, but okay, you are there, your girlfriend is there. Physically you are more powerful than your girlfriend. Do you really think you will be able to do everything you want and you will make her do everything you want? No, in that relationship she has more power. So the nature of power changed. Maybe when it comes to physical power you will be more powerful. Okay. But it's not only physical power, there are different types of power. Then the power is always also not on the same level, in the sense you will see that in a household, usually if you are from northern part of India, you will see the father holds most of the power in the house. But all of a sudden, sometimes you will say, no, but seems like my mother has more say. But all of a sudden, then your grandfather also has a lot of say. So you're just confused who is frankly more powerful. These are just individual level examples. If you will see same example in the society, So you will see in a different caste groupings. Okay, suppose a general idea is the general caste people are more powerful than the scheduled caste people. Okay, and the scheduled caste people have been suppressed over the period of time. If you will go and you see inside the scheduled caste groups, you will find there are further segregation. The people who are in the scheduled caste, they don't teach all of them as the same scheduled caste. They are further segregation and there is further hierarchy. Okay. So how you will define this? So Foucault defined it that power is not one dimensional. Power doesn't move from one side to other side. Power is like a flowing blood in blood vessels, or he defined it in capillary motion. Okay, like the nerves of your hand. Okay, it flows the blood in all directions. If you actually get in biopsy or something, you will see the blood is going from every side to every side. Okay, so it's like dendritic structure in your hand or in your body everywhere. So power is like that, it is going from every side to every side. Okay, and you cannot say that one person only is more powerful. It will depend on a lot of factors. So that is the basic idea, the elementary idea of Michel Foucault. Now in this very case, he says that power operates not only through the economic relations of the base, but also through the cultural and ideological practices. So again, he is talking about that thing only. He used that very concept of the flow of power. Okay, understand this thing. Foucault's elementary concept is flow of power. Who will be able to assert power on whom? This is what he actually deals with. Now he will use that very concept, and he says that why we are only saying that the economic power is the most powerful and it will only act on others. It is not only the economic power, but also the cultural power and the ideological power. For example, you will see around the world, you will never find a leader of the country being the most resourceful as an economically well-off person. Very rarely. Yeah. So, for example, the Prime Minister of India is the most powerful person in India right now. But do the Prime Minister of India has liquidity on him? Does his bank account are well capable of doing anything? No. But he has the power because he has the legitimate authority. Okay. So there are different type of power. It is not only the economic power. Fine. So that is something Foucault says. Judith Butler, okay, postmodernist feminist she is. Butler critiqued Marxist theory of the base and superstructure, arguing they do not account for the ways in which gender, race and sexuality interact with economic relations and reinforces existing power structure. Now, she emphasized the issue of intersectionality. Now, you might not be aware of intersectionality. You know about intersectionality? No. Okay. Again, the generic example. There is a standard notion that the general class people, or the people from the scheduled caste and the other backward classes, have been oppressed by the rest of the people from the general category over the thousands of years, and that's a reality. Okay. But if you will go in the OBC class or the scheduled caste, you will find that the female members of the same household have been suppressed even more, because there is an inherent issue of patriarchy. So you will see the suppression happens because of patriarchy, and then further suppression happens. So there are twofold of suppression. Okay, this twofold suppression is called as intersectionality. Okay, that you have on one, listen, from one side you have one type of suppression, that is caste suppression, which everyone from a certain caste has to face. But then there is another suppression which women has to face just for being women. So that is another thing. Fine. So that is something you have to keep in mind. Okay, Michel Foucault done, Judith Butler is also done. Fine. So these are basic, the concept of base and superstructure, and we also understood the critical analysis of base and superstructure. Now, this very thing can come directly in the examination. They will do just nothing. They will say comment in 150 word, base and superstructure. That's it. That's all what we will write. Comment in 150 word, base and superstructure. Then you have to, the moment you make the diagram, you will get some marks, and then you have to build on that. Now, the next thing, So the basics of this concept I have already explained, but the analysis and critical analysis which is needed, because suppose a question comes that comment in 150 words on base and superstructure. So you cannot just say, okay, the base and superstructure model is the concept of a social stratification social stratification evolved by Karl Marx, and it divides the society into two parts. The mode of production and means of production are in the base, and rest everything is in superstructure. Marx went to the extent of saying even the whole government and the state is part of superstructure, and only the means of production and the four things you will mention are the base structure. If you will write like this much, you will get out of 10 4 marks. But you are someone who is aspiring for 6.5 to 7 marks. No one really get more than 7 marks, the reality. Now, how you will get that? Then in the comment, the question is comment, so you have to make a comment. But neither you nor me are capable enough to make a comment. Even if I'll say something on Karl Marx, who am I? Who the hell is going to listen to me on Karl Marx? I was like, so what you need to do? You need to say further that, but later on, you'll write like this, later on, Antonio Gramsci, okay, evolved and said that the relationship of base and superstructure is not going from bottom to top only, but even the superstructure has the capability to affect the base structure. Antonio Gramsci. Then you will move further like this. So like this you will continue and write one or two examples of the scholars who have further analyzed the base and superstructure concept. Right? So that's one thing. Now move the next, the class conflict theory. Now the class conflict theory, the basics I have explained you. Okay. Marxist class conflict theory asserts that societies are divided into classes based on their relationship to means of production, and that conflict between these classes are the driving force behind the historical change. Now, first of all, have you heard the word bourgeois and proletariat? Yes? No? Who are the bourgeois? Capitalists. Okay, yeah. Haven't you seen? I was watching a YouTube video and they had a show like small clipping, like, and the show's name was Bourgeois ki Balle Balle. Have you seen that? Leave it. There's a YouTube channel, Unscripted by Samdhish. Unscripted by Samdhish. There's this guy. He did a show called as Bourgeois ki Balle Balle. Like all the Delhi people, the South Delhi people, they are basically the bourgeois people. Okay. So yeah, so Marx nowhere is saying that society only has two kind of people, the bourgeois and proletariat. He says a lot of other people also live, a lot of other classes also live. Like stratification is not only twofold, but this twofold stratification is important and capable of explaining most of the issues of the society, and that's why he talks in terms of bourgeois and proletariat. Marx accepts that there are more classes beyond bourgeois and beyond proletariat, okay, but he says that focusing on these two are right now the most important things, and that's why he talks in data. Now Marx also, you need to understand, he was living in London, okay, he has seen Lancashire and all these places who were the industrial towns of Britain back in 1850s. So what he observed, he wrote accordingly. Okay. So because these were industrial towns, there were workers, and living conditions of the workers were highly dilapidated, very bad. Okay, no health facilities, nothing like that, and that's where he developed this concept. So therefore, he is talking in terms of proletariat, that is the working class, and bourgeois, that is the capitalist. But you need to understand that when this very Marxist theory was further evolved and had to be applied in places like Soviet Union or Russia at the time. Russia was not industrialized before 1917. So when Lenin and Trotsky first decided that the Marxist idea has to be executed, Lenin actually wrote a book, What Needs to Be Done, which was published in 1902, where he explained that what all theoretical ideas of Marx need to be revamped so that it can be applied in our country. Similarly, there is a guy called as Emin Roy in India. He wrote extensively that how Marxist ideas need to be implemented in India. Because again, India doesn't have workers, that industry, we don't have that kind of industries, we never had that kind of industrial workers on that level. So their mandate or their opinion really don't matter much. Okay, the major industries in India in the colonial times also were in Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, Kanpur. These were the places. Okay, done, that's it. Okay, Delhi, no one is even talking. Noida nahi tha. Okay, Noida bhi nahi tha, Gurgaon bhi nahi tha. Okay, what was the next city next to Delhi? In the east? Meerut. Nothing else. No Ghaziabad, no Noida. Okay, and Delhi was even not the biggest city. You will see the map of India from 1850, 1860. They used to say that the next city west of Lucknow or north of Lucknow is Lahore. Delhi was a small city which was used as the imperial capital in the Mughal times and the English times also. Delhi became the vibrant big city after 1947 only. Okay, in 1947 also the overall population of Lahore was more than Delhi. Okay? Delhi grew only after 47. So industrial towns were only in Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, somewhat in Kanpur. Now, these are not enough workers. So even if suppose you made every worker in Bombay, Madras and Calcutta understand about Marxism and they all becomes part of the proletariat or the struggling proletariat, then also will you be able to control whole of India with 3 cities? No. But the whole of India have farmers and their plight, their difficulties are also similar. The only thing is you need to evolve a new system so that the base and superstructure, the base structure where we are talking again and again in terms of means of production, and that include raw material, investment, entrepreneur, worker, this has to be reframed in the terms of total yield of the land, presence of land, labor, investment in the land, tax demand from the land. These are the terms on which we have to talk now in the Indian case when it comes to base structure, and the superstructure will be same. Fine. So this transformation, that how Marxist idea will be implemented in India, was done by a scholar. His name was Manvendranath Roy, M.N. Roy. Okay. So, but we will discuss about it later on. Okay. Now, the proletariat and bourgeois, the basic definition is given here. Okay. The proletariats consisting of individuals who own no means of production and must sell their labor to survive. This class is characterized by a lack of control over the production of proceeds and their exploitation by the bourgeois elite. The bourgeois consisting of individuals who own the means of production such as factories, land and capital and exploit the labor of the proletariat to produce profit. This class is characterized by their control over the production process and their accumulation of wealth and power. Okay. As what I just told you, Marxist theory recognizes the existence of other classes and strata in society such as the aristocracy and peasantry, but the proletariat and bourgeois are seen as the two main classes in the capitalist society. Now, when in India it was applied, this peasantry and this aristocracy were given more importance than the proletariat and bourgeois. Okay, instead of bourgeois, we focused on aristocracy, because in India the zamindars connected themselves more to the aristocrats than the capitalists, and the farmers were basically peasantry and not the proletariat. So we transformed this thing while applying. Okay, the transformation hasn't completed yet also. You will see if you ask the if you by any chance will get the chance, you get an opportunity to read the Communist Party of India Marxist-Leninist Manifesto. Okay, don't read it, but if you get to do it, they are still talking about that how we can transform the concept of the working class proletariat for the peasantry in India. They are still trying to do it or implement it. Like M.N. Roy wrote it, but implementation is a different ball game on its own. So they are still trying to do it. I was listening to one of a speech of Sitaram Yechury, and Sitaram Yechury, for those who don't know, he is the chairman of the Politburo of the Communist Party of India, and he was saying that we are trying to do it. Anyway, so that's what the basic idea of this class conflict. The class conflict between not just the two sides, but we are discussing only the two, because Marx has defined the two. Rest of them also have class conflict. Now, who are the scholars who have discussed this class conflict theory? Again, almost similar thing. We won't change many scholars, because if we keep on changing the scholars, it will be difficult to remember. Okay, if we have like, it will be easier, because later on it will be easier for you, because you will remember by the time of the examination that, look, whenever there will be a issue regarding Marx, I have to remember analysis of Marx by Gramsci, analysis of Marx by Louis Althusser, or Judith Butler. So there will be 4 or 5 names regarding that, so it will be easier for you to understand. Otherwise it will be like, okay, fine, Marx concept of base and superstructure has been analyzed by different scholars. Marx concept of class conflict has been analyzed by different scholar. It will be just too difficult. Okay, so this is a easier way of doing it. Antonio Gramsci challenged the idea that class struggle is the sole driving force in history. Class struggle is the sole driving force in history, and emphasized the role of ideology in maintaining class domination. He argued that the ruling class exercises its power not only through economic control but also through cultural and ideological means. Standard thing. Louis Althusser, he argued that ideology functions as means of social contract, reproducing existing social relations and maintaining the dominant position of the ruling class. He emphasized the role of state and its institution in reproducing class domination. Jean Baudrillard, postmodernist scholar, become obsolete in post-industrial society. Okay, he says that, look, this whole thing that labor and exploitation and class in post-industrial society, which is basically after Second World War, doesn't make any sense. Okay, but that's basically where you are living. If you will go to China, this whole worker and proletariat thing matters a lot. Okay, so wherever the working class is, Indian scenario is very different. Okay? Although if you'll see Indian IT companies now, you can actually treat them like a proletariat. But yeah, Michel Foucault, okay, power and knowledge is maintaining social control, and challenged the idea of unified working class and homogeneous bourgeois. He argued that power operates through a multitude of interconnected relations and practices, and that it is not located in any single institution or group. Judith Butler, American postmodernist feminist, theories of critique Marxist theories of class and exploitation, arguing they did not account for the ways in which gender, race and sexuality intersect with class and reinforce existing power structure. She emphasized the importance of intersectionality in understanding and challenging social domination. Okay, mode of production theory. Okay, mode of production theory. Framework. Mode of production provides a framework, social stratification, organization of society into different classes. According to Marxist theory, mode of production is the basis of social relations and determines the structure of the society. Feudalism, capitalism. Marx identified 2 main modes of production, feudalism and capitalism, because that was the thing which was available at the time. 1850 is a very interesting time. It's too cold. यहाँ बैठ जाओ यार. So feudalism, okay, and like 1850s or like whole of 19th century is a very interesting phase, because look, in England the feudalism ended with the rise of industrial revolution. So industrial revolution in England happened, or we can say that not obviously not 1 year or 1 date, but the period 1750 onwards industrial revolution started happening. 1750, 60, 1770, that period, as and when steam engine evolved and then subsequently it is used for different processes, industrial revolution evolved. When industrial revolution started, people got like more money in cities. So laborers who were part of the feudal structure, the serfs, they started leaving the land and running away to go and work there. And that is how feudalism ended. So in the 18th century, okay, 1770, 1780, the feudalism in England started ending. But the rest of the Europe had feudalism even in the 19th century. Okay, you will see the Russian society, for example, it was only after Bolshevik revolution took place and Lenin came to power it was a mass effort by the Soviet government to implement socialism that feudalism in a sense ended. It was all for a very long period of time, the people were just living on the land and the land belonged to the king. That was existing till 1917 in Russia. So keeping that thing in mind, because Marx have seen this thing happening. Look, Marx never gave the example of Russia. Marx had nothing to do with Russia. Okay, it was by luck that after he died, his writings were read by Lenin and other Bolshevik leaders who then implemented it in Russia. Otherwise, he was a German who spent most of his times while writing the books in London. So he was writing in German language. All the Marx writing are basically in German only, and he was writing about Europe and Western Europe specifically. He was not at all concerned about Russia. Okay, but the ideas were implemented in Russia. Therefore, keeping the time period where he was, he talked that there are two main modes of production, feudalism and capitalism. You will not say these are the main mode of production in the modern times. Okay, but in the Marxist time, when Marx was alive, these were the main mode of production. According to Marxist mode of production theory, social stratification is a result of unequal distribution of wealth and power that results from the exploitation of the working class by the bourgeois. The ruling class controls the means of production and the state, and while the working class is relegated to a subordinate position in society, struggling to make a living and maintain its basic needs, this results in a society divided into different classes, each with its own interests, values, and cultural practices. To understand it like this, there are two types of people. One, who have resources. If you have adequate amount of resources, you may use those resources to further accumulate resources. The other people are those who don't have resources and they earn resources to fulfill their immediate requirements. Okay, their immediate needs, their immediate desires. They bring in some resources, they work hard enough, they get money in the form of, that's wealth is resources, and they use it to fulfill their essentialities, and then they repeat the cycle. Okay, some are good enough to work excellently good enough among these people only, and somehow save some wealth, and then they can also use that wealth to further create more wealth, and then that is how the only way in capitalism through which one can move from one class to another class. Okay, and is it difficult? Fine, that's it. Marx also argued that the ruling class uses control over the means of production and the relation of production to shape the dominant ideology, which is the set of beliefs and values that are widely accepted as legitimate within a society. This ideology serves to justify the existing social and economic relations. Okay, let me give you an example, a very interesting example. Have you ever been to a store, clothing store called as Maneuver? Yeah. Huh? Once, okay. So have you purchased, what you purchased from? Nothing. Went there, purchased nothing. Okay. So if you have been to Maneuver, it's a chain of stores which only sells the North Indian ethnic men cultural wear. Okay, North Indian ethnic men cultural wear. So basically, there will be pajamas and kurtas and dhotis, kurta and sherwani and all these things, right? Now, if you will understand this thing, 1950s, 1960s, the Indian men were actually wearing this very thing only. Okay, if you ask actually your grandfather, grandfather, he will tell you that either him or even his father used to wear these things very normally. Okay, so even if you go to villages right now, people wear kurtas and pajamas. So there was a whole period when wearing these things were considered to be wrong or not appreciated at least enough. And then what happened? Society got disenchanted with these kind of clothing. Okay, and the shirts and the pants on the Western style, they came in market. Then what happened? The same companies now started making the same clothing which were initially rejected by us, And now because they have a structure of giving it acceptance in the society, we are again appreciative of the same thing. So as a society, it is on us, either we accept it or we reject it. We cannot go both the ways. Okay, but this is precisely what we are doing. What we are doing is we are accepting or appreciating the same clothing now which we have rejected from at least past 60 years. Okay, now that is explained here, is that the ideology serves to justify the existing social, the means of production, the relations of production to the shape of the dominant ideology, which is the set of beliefs and the values that are widely accepted as a legitimate within a society. So these set of values which are accepted as legitimate can be transformed over the period of time by the capitalist class as per their needs and demands. Now, for example, the capitalist class now have understood now that enough of shirts and pants and t-shirts and polo t-shirts, no one really cares about them anymore. Okay. So now what? Back to the what was sold back in the day. Okay, maybe 60 years down the line, they will again go to back to pants and shirts, whatever was in the market. Okay, so you will see what is happening here. The cultural notion can also be pre-decided. So again, this is here where Marxist notion, then economy can affect the culture is visible. But you can see other way around also, culture affecting the economy. So since we live in a postmodern world, if someone asks you your personal opinion, suppose at an interview round, someone asks you, okay, fine, let's leave about Gramsci and let's leave Marx away. What do you think? Which is more important, the economy or the culture? What will be your answer? Culture. Okay. The answer is, sir, both have a role to play. Okay, this is what going to be the answer. Okay, not the, you can say in present time actually culture is more important, has become in past at least 20, 3 decades, culture has playing more important role. But your answer has to be, sir, both has a role to play, depending upon the immediate scenario of the society. We will say that which is getting more important. For example, suppose there is an economic crisis, economy will have more important role to play. Suppose there is some religious issue going on, culture will have more importance. So depending upon the issue at the time, we will decide which can have more impact, but otherwise both have a role to play and both have the capability of impacting each other. That is the something you need to understand. Now means and modes of production, here we have already discussed this thing, but it's written here, means of production, modes of production. Okay. The difference there, you can read that thing. In the last class, I actually dictated this precise definition of what means of production, what is mode of production. So I'll ask Roshan sir after the class to give you the link of previous lectures. Okay, he will send you the links and he will give you a time, something like a week or something. So watch that classes within the week or something. Following are the major modern and postmodern scholars who have analyzed Marxist mode of production theory. They criticized it and provided alternative ways also. So because most of the time the issue is this only, that okay, the criticism is there, but what if you only criticize? That's not the way. You have to provide a sustainable alternative also. So criticism is one part, but alternative also has to be there. So scholar, criticism of Marxist mode of production and alternative. Antonio Gramsci, Louis Althusser, Michel Foucault. Yeah, these are there. So, criticism, Gramsci criticized Marxist mode of production for its economist approach, and obviously how his alternative will be in the culture sense. Louis Althusser criticized Marxist mode of production for its failure to adequately account for the role of state in shaping society. He argued that state should be seen as an autonomous site of power that operates through a variety of ideological state apparatus to reproduce the dominant ideology and maintain the existing social and economic relation. Louis Althusser is of the opinion that state will do everything possible to make sure that the dominant ideology of the society is visible in the actions of the state also. Okay, whatever ideologies, like dominant ideologies is something like in modern day India, people accept that individualism is important. Okay, you ask anyone and everyone, they will say that democracy is important, liberalism is important. Okay, secularism thoda thoda aise ho raha hai. But in a general sense, if you'll ask people, they will say that they want to be secular. Okay, they might have opinion on some other people faith, but if you'll ask them that whether you want complete autonomy on your faith or not, that means you need to have that assurity that okay, I want to pray, I should pray. If I don't want to pray, I will not pray. They want that thing for sure. So that also comes under secularism. Secularism is not only about you giving space to other people's faith. Secularism is also of state allowing you to practice or not to practice your faith. That also comes in your secularism concept. So basically, suppose a Hindu guy is told that okay, now every Tuesday you have to go to a temple. Okay, that is also something he will not like. Okay, so that is where it is coming from. Okay, that a sense of liberalism is an internal ideology which has been accepted. That Louis Althusser says that the state will make sure, okay, that the dominant, these kind of dominant ideologies are visible in the state. Okay. Michel Foucault criticized Marxist mode of production for its economic approach and its failure to account for the ways in which power operates in a society. He argued for a more nuanced approach to understanding power that emphasized its distribution throughout society. Last concept, labor theory of value. At labor theory, where we will start, okay, we will start with Adam Smith. You know who is Adam Smith? Have you ever heard about Adam Smith? Who he is? Any idea? No? Yeah, so look, Adam Smith, like everyone else, he is a guy, English scholar, who in 1776 wrote a book, Wealth of the Nations. Okay, Wealth of the Nation. Wealth of Nations. Okay, and in this book he came up with the concept of invisible hand of the market, which decides the demand and supply. Okay, and through that he defined, or he is considered as the founding father of capitalism. Fine. So Adam Smith, the labor theory of value was initially developed by him, not by Marx. Okay, Marx used it to critique capitalism through social stratification theory. Marx argued that labor theory of value provides a means of understanding the exploitation of the working class by ruling class and how the surplus value of any product which has been created only goes to the ruling class. This shows the exploitation. This is what precisely I told you, that in the most, if empirical sense I have to explain it, so the difference between the selling price and the cost price is always the profit which goes to the owner, the company or the factory. That is how exploitation is explained. Now, according to it, the value of good or service is determined by the amount of labor that have gone into producing it. That means in a capitalist society, the value of a good or service is proportional to the amount of labor that has been invested in producing it. Achha. Now, here the definition of labor is very interesting. There is a person who is working as a worker. There is a person who is working as a capitalist or entrepreneur. Now, I am not saying that the entrepreneur is not investing labor. He is also performing. He is going, taking meetings, bringing the orders. He is taking the stress. He is investing the money. That is also part of labor. And therefore, because of that labor, he also has a stake. But he doesn't have the complete ownership of everything. So this complete absolute ownership is something which Marx has criticized. But because most of the students, what happens is, because people think the labor word has been used. So people think, okay, labor, worker, something similar. So all the 100% of the labor is of the worker only. No. in production of anything, all four means of production has a role to play. And when all four will have to have a role to play, then the entrepreneur also has a role to play. It is entrepreneur's labor also. No one is denying that. But entrepreneur alone taking all the profit, that is also wrong. Fine. So don't get confused by thinking that look, all the labor is of worker only, and that's not how it is. The labor theory of value can be seen as means of understanding and explaining social stratification. In a capitalist society, ruling class controls the means of production and exploits the working class by paying them a wage that is less than the value of the goods that they produce. This results in accumulation of the surplus value which the ruling class uses to expand its wealth and power. The exploitation of the working class by the ruling class leads to the accumulation of wealth and power, which is then used to reinforce the existing social and economic relation. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle of exploitation and inequality that reinforces social stratification and perpetuates the dominance of the ruling class. Clear? No, you don't. I'll explain it. It's a very simple thing. It says that look, what is happening? Exactly the same thing. That a guy has been paid 1,000 rupees, raw material was 1,200 rupees, the cost of the production was 2,200, but it is sold for 5,000. Profit is taken by the ruling class, the owner of the company. Okay, but that is wrong, because the profit margin is so huge that this will go on continuously and continuously and continuously. Effectively, what will happen? There will be so much margin of difference will be so huge between the entrepreneur and the laborer, then the laborer will be subsequently will only be working for the owner continuously. Nothing else will happen. So, a step-by-step guide of how the labor theory of value can be led to social stratification. Now, this is important. Obviously, in the examination, you don't have to write this big. My issue was, I just want to make sure that the classes are completed on time. So, for that reason, I cannot make you write all these things in the classroom. Okay, so that's why it's there. But try to make these diagrams, if social stratification you have to explain, okay, by this way. You can remove the extra boxes, but these 4 boxes can be made. So that's how the labor theory of value can explain the stratification. Initially, what happens? The exploitation of the working class. Then, because of the exploitation, the money which has been achieved used to accumulation of wealth and power. Then, the reinforcement of social and economic relation. Finally, the perpetuation of social stratification. Fine. In capitalist society, the ruling class controls the means of production and exploits the working class by paying them a wage that is less than the value of goods they produce. This results in accumulation of surplus between the which is difference between the value of goods produced and the cost of the labor that has gone into producing them. So basically, difference between the cost price and the selling price. Then the ruling class uses the surplus value to expand its wealth and power. The accumulation of wealth and power reinforces the existing social and economic relation. Because of the money which has been accumulated, further the ruling class will be able to assert themselves. Okay, now how this assertion happens? Look, let me explain this and then I'll give you a real example. Then the wealth and power of the ruling class is used to reinforce the existing social economic relations, making it difficult for the working class to challenge the status quo of escape from exploitation. This leads to the creation and perpetuation of special stratification. The self-perpetuating cycle exploits and continues forever. So now, have you, too young, you are too young, you have never worked anywhere now? No, fine. You will see many a time that your cousins or brother, sister, anyone around you who might be working, you will see that whenever there are festivities, if they have a job, the company gives them gift hampers, like Diwali gift and this and that. Now, why these gifts are there? If one has to explain it from Marx's point of view. Like giving someone a box of sweet is a different thing. Okay? That's a totally different thing. Okay? Matlab son papdi de dena. That's a different thing. But going beyond that, you will see a lot of people get a lot of gifts from companies they work for. Sometimes, like, you will see companies will give you gold coins on Diwali, or some big gift hamper or something like that. New hip startups will give you some new kind of coffees or something like that. Now the reason is that the exploitation which they have done of yours has led to creation of a surplus. The surplus is basically their profit, and to assert their authority on you now, the easiest way is to give you gift hampers. Have you ever seen partners giving each other gifts like this? Partners don't, like, gold partners एक दूसरे को गिफ्ट नहीं देते, पार्टनर शेयर्स कर लेते हैं. ठीक है. If you are a partner in an industry, okay, you have a 10% ownership, okay, the structure will might give everyone something, that's a different thing, but one of a partner will not give another partner a gold coin. That wouldn't happen. Okay, so partners won't do that. Okay, this is only for, so the gifts, the material small token which is given, okay, material token it is called, that is only to further assert the difference in the relationship, that this is going to be the relationship how it is always going to be of the relationship of the give and take. Okay, so that is what is written here. The ruling class uses the surplus value to expand its wealth and power. This accumulation of wealth and power reinforces the existing social and economic relation and creates a self-perpetuating cycle of exploitation and inequality. Okay, so the money difference is further going to increase and increase and increase. The next time whenever you work somewhere and anyone tries to gift you anything, leave the job. Leave the job immediately. Now, the major modern and postmodern scholars: Max Weber, Emil Durkheim, and Karl Polanyi. Max Weber is a sociologist. Durkheim is also a sociologist. Karl Polanyi is also a sociologist. Max Weber is someone who has extensively worked on the types of authority. Okay, so he is a scholar of that kind. Emil Durkheim is a very famous sociologist. Okay, Max Weber criticized Marx's theory for being too deterministic and not taking into account the role of power and social class. Suggested the concept of social action as a way of understanding human behavior and how it contributes to creation of social structure. Emil Durkheim argued social stratification is not solely a result of economic factor, but also reflects differences in moral, cultural, and intellectual quality. He proposed that the division of labor within society creates different social categories, and that these categories can lead to the formation of social classes. Okay, Karl Polanyi argued economy is embedded in the social and political relations, and that market is not a self-regulating entity. Suggested the concept of great transformation, in which he argued that the rise of a self-regulating market economy was a result of political and economic processes rather than an inevitable outcome of economic laws. Now, next we have to discuss Marx's theory of ideology. Okay, this is very interesting because false ideology will be discussed here. Marx's theory of ideology. Now, there is nowhere in a specific point Marx discussed ideology as such. Okay, some ideology he discussed at one point, some ideology he discussed in another book. So everywhere he has discussed ideology a little bit. The German ideology was a one text written in 1846 where he discussed some of the ideologies. Then Communist Manifesto 1848, again because 1848 is also a very important year. Okay, 1848 is the year when Europe was going through a struggle. Okay, so again because struggle was going on, so Marx discussed ideology in this period, because obviously in a year of revolution, struggle, You need ideological concept to explain people what needs to be done, and he wrote that book. Then in 1867, Capital Volume 1 it is written, because look, the Das Kapital, the work Capital, was initially written in 1867 and continuously was revised till 1894. Marx himself died in 1883, but his friend Friedrich Engels continuously reviewed the book and added few chapters, like happens also right now, like Lakshmikant, edition 5, edition 6, edition 7, edition 8, that comes. Similarly, Capital was also coming, new editions. So Marx wrote till the time he was alive. After them, also for 10 years, the book came. So Capital, in the very first volume, again some ideologies are defined, and then the 18 Brumaire of Louis Napoleon, that is a history work written by Marx, there also some of the ideologies are defined. Fine. The German ideology, Marx and Friedrich Engels criticized the dominant ideology of their time, arguing that ideology serves to obscure the true nature of society and relationship of power. As in, they were saying, what happens with the ideology? The society they were living in was an authoritarian society. Prussian rulers were there, and Germany was not yet established. Understand this thing? Germany was created as a country in the year 1871. This book was written in 1846. Okay, don't know, Germany was made in 1871. Fine. Germany, just like India had small states, they came together and made this country in 1947. Similarly, Germany also had small states like Bavaria, okay, like Wurmberg, like Prussia. All these came together in the year 1871 to form the Kingdom of Germany. Okay, under the leadership of Emperor of Prussia only. Okay. Similarly, Italy also came together in 1861. Italy came 1861, became one country. Before that, they were small kingdoms like Naples, Florence, Rome, Sardinia. All of them came together under the leadership of King of Sardinia and made one country called as Italy. Okay, so he was saying that when he was talking about the German ideology, 1846, so he was talking from the perspective of the Prussians, and he said that look what has happened because of this idea of nationalism, because that was the idea, because whenever there is a king is always going to talk about nationalism. People obviously directly will be related, whether you will provide them food or not, whether you take care of them for their health or not, whether you provide them education or not, as long as you continuously tell them, yeah, nationalism, they will stand with you. Okay, so every king, every ruler does that. They were also doing it, and this is why they criticize it. They said like all these ideologies are futile, because the ideologies, what they do, the ideologies obscure the true nature of the state. What actually is the work of the country, and what the work of the state, and what the state is actually doing. No one talks about it because of ideologies, because we always keep on thinking, okay, some greater glory is there to achieve. No greater glory is there for anyone to achieve. Simple relationship is there. We are paying you tax, please provide us services. That's it. Okay. The Communist Manifesto, 1848. This work lays out the Marxist view of ideology as a class domination. Now here in 1848, he first time gave this idea of stratification. The society is divided into two parts. Okay, the proletariat and bourgeois. The social stratification is there. And then in this work only in 1848, he explained that even the state is a tool in the hands of the bourgeois, because state is also part of the superstructure. So state is also a tool in hands of bourgeois, which is as a tool is used by the rich people, the capitalist class, to control the proletariat. Okay, and this is the ideology of domination. This is the ideology of domination. So that's the ideology of domination. Okay. In this work, Marx provides an in-depth analysis of the capitalist mode of production and its impact on economy, social and political realities, including the development of dominant ideologies. the 18th Brumaire of Louis Napoleon. In this work, Marx analyzed the role of ideology in the political events of his times, viewing ideology as a means of legitimizing the rule of the ruling class. Again, what ideology does? Ideology is, as per Marx, is always going to be in line, which is able to justify the demand of the ruling elite. Okay. Now, this is not always the case. Okay. For example, you will see in the modern times, just few days back, there was a revolution in a way in Bangladesh. What happened in Bangladesh is actually can be considered a revolution. You are able to overthrow the regime. It's a revolution. That's the basic definition. So the student unions over there, the government, the opposition, were able to remove the government from power. So that was a revolution. Now, Marx always say that ideologies always serve the people in power, the elite, but that is not always the case. Okay, we have later on seen by the scholarly work and the scholars who have worked extensively on revolution, someone like Trotsky, Leon Trotsky, or Vladimir Lenin. These were like not only scholars, theoretical scholars, but these were actually people who implemented also things. Leon Trotsky and Lenin both were leaders in Bolshevik revolution in Russia. So they have also said that ideologies are not always a tool in hands of the ruling elite, but ideologies, only those ideologies are successful which are accepted by the majority of the society. Okay, it's not required on the first day majority should accept it, but over the period of time, unless and until majority will accept the ideology, okay, it will not be implemented. Never ever you will see that the majority community doesn't want something and it will happen. So whenever you see something government is doing, they have a tacit acceptance of majority community. If they don't, very soon you will see repercussions. For example, exactly the same thing. Sheikh Hasina government, okay, her actions from past few years can be considered not in line with the expectations of the majority community of Bangladesh. Okay, so she has been pushed out, even though she has won the election in this year January only, but still she was pushed out. So these things do happen. Okay, so that is something for which Marx later on can be criticized also, but for his time period where he was living, he saw ideologies in this fashion. Now, in 1994, a question was directly asked, critically examine the Marxian theory of social stratification. Okay, so first of all, can start always from the very definition of strata. Strata can be defined as a division, or social stratification can be defined as the classification of the society into various classes, which can be kept in hierarchy. You can write like that. And then you will say that there are 4 different ways in which social stratification can be done, and the 4 theories we have discussed, you can mention them, and then you can write, you don't have to write criticism of each of the 4, but in a general sense you can write that okay, Antonio Gramsci have done the criticism, okay, Judith Butler has done the criticism, Louis Althusser has done the criticism. 3 criticism will be more than enough and your answer will be done. Okay, so sometimes very easy, like if you see, we have discussed in great detail the concept of social stratification as defined by Marx, and here the question was critically examine the social stratification. Since the question is critically examined, you can also write that whether do we even need social stratification or not. Okay, for example, postmodernist scholars will say that social stratification is not even required. We should directly focus on individual needs. Why even to bother about social stratification? Social stratification means we have to divide the society into classes, different strata, and if we are dividing them in different groups, then we are considering that everyone's needs are uniform, then only they are in one class. But that we already know, everyone's needs are not uniform, everyone wants different thing in their life. And since we live in modern times, we have the resources, we have the capability to take targeted action, then why we are even going for this uniformity? Not required. So that is, you can also write as a criticism, right? Now After this, you will see the next topic, Marxist theories of ideology and numerous and varied, but some of the most prominent include Marxist theories of ideology. So first is ideology as a product of historical development. Okay, have you seen the class on Hegel? Have you seen the class on Hegel? No. Walter, have you seen the class on Hegel? Fine. No. Okay, fine. So you have not heard anything about Hegel? There was this scholar, his name was Hegel, and Marx based all his theories on Hegel's concept. Okay, there are a few changes which I'll explain, but I need to explain that, otherwise you will get confused. Walter, have you studied? Please write that thing in comment and then we'll proceed. First understand this thing, otherwise again this will be difficult for you to understand. Ideology as a product of historical development. So it will take 2 minutes. Suppose whatever you do in your life, okay, before you do it, you think about it, then only you do it. That's how everything happens in the whole world. Hegel says that at the fundamental of everything is an idea. Okay, it's not like I'm making a advertisement for idea, but for the fundamental, the core of everything is an idea. Someday, somewhere you decided, I should start preparing for civil service, and that's why you're sitting here. Right? So everything starts with the idea. If there is an idea, there is also opposing idea. Always. If you have a set of opinion, there will be someone in the society who will say that you are absolutely wrong. Now Hegel says that neither you are right, nor that person is right. The truth, the perfect truth, is somewhere in between. So suppose one day you decided, I have to make a new factory to make chairs. There is another person who says that making chair is the worst thing. There is no need of chair. People can sit anywhere they want. Now what will happen? That person will come and you will come, and you both will have a discussion that, do we really need chairs? Why the hell we are even making chairs? Can't just people sit like that? Like, why the society came up with the even chair? From very elementary basic level. Like, why chairs? And you started giving your argument that why chair will be good. It looks sophisticated to sit upon. That person will be saying, but chairs, like, they actually affect your posture. Or not effectively, it's not good. So you people are now fighting, discussing, you're debating whether having a chair is even good or not. Right? Effectively, what will happen? At one point, you will reach a conclusion. Okay. You can also beat up each other, but that's a different scenario. But usually you will end up under some conclusion. Either you will accept his thing and you will say, okay, we should all get rid of all the chairs in the whole universe. Or even the second thing will be, he will accept that, okay, fine, let's make chairs. Or the most desired outcome will be that you will say, okay, fine, we'll make a chair, but we will take care that the chair should not look the way it is. It should also make sure that it takes care of the posture and this and that. So basically what you are doing, you are the final argument which you people both have reached has certain ingredients of yours and certain ingredients of his. Right? So Hegel says that this whole idea of you, that you should make a chair, is a thesis statement. Thesis. Okay? Like you have a thesis statement for essay, so that thesis. The guy who says that you should not have a chair and no one should have a chair in the world, his argument is an antithesis. Hegel says that this thesis and antithesis will collide with each other. There will be a discussion between two sides, and the outcome will be called a synthesis, because it is coming from the synthesis of the discussion. Now Hegel says that this is also not the perfect truth, and because there is a synthesis, there will be another third person who will come in. Like, but still there is difficulties with this chair. This new chair also is not perfect. Now that synthesis will have a new antithesis, and they will now collide. their discussions will go on, and based on their outcome their new chair will be formed, and still this will go on, and this will never end. This will go on and on and on forever. Right? Now this is example of a chair. Now take example of a real world problem. So do you know about French Revolution? Yeah. So in 1789 French Revolution happened. Now prior to French Revolution, the French state has an argument that absolute rule is the only solution. Okay, absolute rule is the only solution, and Louis XVI has to be the absolute monarch. People like Rousseau and others thought like no, there has to be a concept of social contract. We have to focus on individualism. All these things are also important, right? And the effective outcome of this discussion became that okay, what we have to do is, we saw the outcome of this thesis, that is absolutism, and antithesis, that is social contract, individual rights, all these things, was a synthesis, that was French Revolution. So the synthesis itself was French Revolution. The two sides, the ideas fought, and outcome was French Revolution. But did the French Revolution was a perfect outcome? No. French Revolution happened, and then antithesis of the French Revolution also came in. That was the rise of Napoleon. Right now, there is a fifth republic in France. In 1945, when Charles de Gaulle took the oath for presidency, the French started with their fifth attempt to make a republic. The first attempt was the synthesis. Right now they are going on their fifth synthesis. Still they are beating up each other every now and then. Even they are not good at organizing Olympics. So what we saw? We saw that the whole process is a synthesis. Right? So in a way, it was all ideas only initially, right? Now, in this happening, in this struggle of ideas, some ideas are executed also. And in this struggle of ideas, whatever happens is basically what is history. Okay? In the struggle of ideas, whatever happens is history. That is how Hegel explains it. Okay? So, Hegel says, because obviously people in the 18th century, so they are always talking in terms of some other worldly stuff. So he says that the spirit of history, okay, what does he mean by spirit? Internal soul of history. Next is fine, but the spirit of history is there in the dialectical idealism. Dialectical means two people discussing, that dialectism, and ideas, idealism. So he says the spirit of history is in the dialectical idealism. That's it. Okay, this is the basic idea of Hegel. Now Marx built upon this idea. Marx says whatever Hegel is saying, framework was wise, it is all correct. Whatever Hegel said, that makes sense. The only problem is this thing he is talking about, that idea and all, it's not quantifiable. What is even idea? You have idea? No, you don't have idea. How can I be assured that you have idea? It's not quantifiable. Na? You cannot tell me, okay, I have 2 liters of idea, or I have 5 meters of idea. What is even this idea? Okay, so it's not quantifiable. And Marx don't like things which are not quantifiable. So he says that look, idea and all, it's not quantifiable. We should not focus on this. We should focus on those things which can be empiricized, which is logical, which can be calculated, which is visible. So he says that look, instead of ideas, if you focus, actually the struggle is not of ideas. The struggle is of material resources. He says that ideas are misnomers. The real fight is for material resources, and that also makes sense if you will see why you are studying here. So that you can become a civil servant. Okay. You have a standard decent job and you can earn money and also work. Okay. So ultimate goal is generation and accumulation of wealth, material gain. Okay. So therefore Marx says that it was always the dialectical idealism is not correct, but it should be called as dialectical materialism. It should not be called as dialectical idealism, it should be called as dialectical materialism. That the discussion, the debate, the struggle which is going on is not going on between two ideas. The debate is going on between two material, or for the intention of material gain. Right? So here you will see, based on this idea only, and then he says, just like he said that, Hegel said that in this struggle of ideas, whatever happens leads to the formation of history. Now Marx will say that in the struggle of this material wealth, whatever happens will lead to the formation of history. He also says history. So you will see Marxist history is always from the material perspective. That is the reason you will see that the Marxist scholars always focused on the material gain and loss in the society. Okay. So now you will see here what is written on the page number 23. Yeah. Marxist theories of ideologies are numerous and varied, but some of the most prominent theories, number one is ideology as a product of historical development. Okay, ideology as a product of historical development. Now first of all, you understood how history developed for Marx. Before we reach this point, you had to understand how history has developed for Marx. Then only you will see that, okay, in this history how ideology different. Now let me also explain you one in a more analytical manner, and it will make sense to you. Do you know, like, did you had like some idea about Cartesian plane? Cartesian plane. Did you had like mathematics in your 11th and 12th standard? Or yes, maths. Okay. So have you read about the coordinates x, y, those things? Yeah. So that this graph you make, that is called as Cartesian plane. Yeah. Remember? Yeah. Fine. Just happens. So suppose suppose this is x-axis and this is y-axis, and this is a graph of y equals to mx plus c, right? This much you remember now. This is very easy, right? Yeah. So if this is a point x1 y1, this is a point x2 y2, okay, and you don't know this formula. Okay, suppose you don't know this is y equals to mx plus c, or even if you know, but these point coordinates are there. Okay? Using these coordinates, you will be able to tell me what is here, or what is here, or what will be here, right? Right? Yes. Yes, no? That's how line thing and Cartesian works. Now this is exactly these people also are doing. So what ideology does? Ideology is like this formula. Okay, if this is your timeline, this x-axis is your timeline, okay, of the whole world. What is x-axis? Timeline of the world. And y-axis is happenings of the world. Okay, fine. This is your timeline of the world. These are whatever happens. So in 1789 French Revolution happened. Year 1789 French Revolution. Fine. Similarly 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. So everything is plotted on this. Now you have a formula of a line which is connecting all this, and this curve is the ideology. So if you know all this, you will be able to predict the upcoming revolutions, right? Yes, this is what these people are trying to do. Fine. But the only thing is they use so difficult language and they don't use mathematics. People don't understand it. But this is all what they are trying to do. Otherwise, why the hell anyone is interested in learning about revolution? Just to make sure the next revolution doesn't happen. Okay, so now if this is your whole graph and this is your whole thing, then the historical development happens on this plot only. Okay, and therefore if you understand this very shape, by means you will never be able to understand the perfect shape because this is not mathematics, but even if you are able to predict that okay, this thing has happened, this thing will happen. Okay, so down the line you will be able to predict what happens. Like for example, there is a J-shaped theory which predicts how a revolution happens, which says that whenever society is in a depressing situation, revolutions don't happen. Whenever society is going down and down and down and down, revolutions don't happen. Revolution only happens when society is going down and down and down and then appreciated a bit and then again started going down. Okay, so they say that if you try to make like this only a diagram, and here there is time and here there is growth. Okay, growth of the society. Suppose economic growth only. Okay, economic growth. So it says this society will not revolt. Fine. This society will. Okay. Here what is happening? Growth is going down and down and down. No one will revolt. Here what happened? Growth is down, 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 then went a bit up, then again went down. This is where people will revolt. Right? Now, how this has been analyzed? By looking at different events in the history. People have seen hundreds and thousands of different scenarios and they say, okay, this is always what is happening. Again, look at the example of Bangladesh. From 1971, okay, the society was in crisis. Since 1990 was the last time army government was removed and democratic elections started happening. Since 1991 up till now, there was not even a single instance, where we saw the government was removed. Although we know very well that Bangladesh was doing very bad since 1991 economically. But last 2 years only we have read that Bangladesh started doing really good. Their per capita income has got better than India. And then the revolution happened. Okay, so this is what proves that. Fine. Now, what we are able to analyze here is this historical analysis. And this is also what Marx is trying to do. So, ideology as a product of historical development. By analyzing the historical development, we are able to develop the ideology. Okay, that is the first concept you need to understand. For these 3 points are there. Marx believed that ideology is not a static or unchanging concept, but rather a product of historical development. According to Marx, the dominant ideas and values of a society change over time as society itself changes and evolves. Marx observed that ideology is closely tied to the mode of production or the way that goods are produced and exchanged in a society. He believed that the dominant ideology of a society is shaped by the interests of the ruling class, who are in control of the means of production and therefore have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Fine. Marx argued that the development of new modes of production and the rise of new ruling class lead to the development of new ideologies, which help to shape and maintain the new social and economic structure. He believed that the contradictions and the conflict within society drive historical change and that the development of new ideologies is an important aspect of progress. So ideologies keep on changing and evolving. Now, one more thing you need to understand, since we are talking so much about revolution. Revolution is never led by the bottommost strata of the society. Okay, like शहर में रोड पे जो रिक्शे वाला है वो रेवोल्यूशन नहीं करता. रेवोल्यूशन कौन करता है? द सेकेंड इन कमांड. Right? Revolution is always led by someone who has just a step below the top authority. Okay, like for example, you see in India, the latest example, we obviously, since we are a stable country, we don't get that many examples, but you see in India, the closest we have come to revolution in past 3 decades is the 2011 IAC, India Against Corruption, the whole thing, when Arvind Kejriwal's party rose. Now, if you theoretically try to analyze this thing, you will see who is Arvind Kejriwal? Ex-bureaucrat. He is not someone who is totally aloof. वो रोड पे रिक्शा नहीं चलाते थे. Okay, उनको पहले से पता था गवर्नमेंट कैसे चलती है. So if he already is aware of how things run and how things works, he is able to rise up to the occasion. Okay, this is the case with all places. You will see in Pakistan, you saw the rise of someone like Imran Khan. Now, Imran Khan is not some random dude from roadside, even if he was not the prime minister. Even if he was not the prime minister, he was the most famous Pakistani ever. Right? So, revolution are always led by the people who have some worth of their own always. It is very rare that revolution makes someone rise. It happens, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But those people then don't rise to the occasion immediately. For example, you will see the rise of people like Lalu Prasad Yadav, Nitish Kumar. All these people rose out of the JP Andolan in 1975 in India. But then these people didn't came to power in 1977. These people came to power only in 1990s. So the action were taken later on. That was the instigating phase. So revolution, always understand, is never led by the bottommost strata, because bottommost strata don't even aspire to revolt. The J-shaped curve shows us what? It shows that the revolution is done by the aspiring class. Okay. Here what is happening? Continuous depression. No one cares for anything. Everyone is like, हाँ ठीक है, मर जाएंगे. It is here when the growth came and when depression came. Those who were aspiring for growth hasn't got the exact results, and then they retaliated. So revolutions are always done by the aspiring class. Okay, that is something you have to keep in mind all the time. Now, the next concept which is written here is historical materialism. Okay, historical materialism, I have kind of explained it in a few minutes back only to you. That is basically the whole concept of historical idealism, but when in the historical, the dialectical idealism, but in the long run, the whole struggle is happening for material gain. So historical materialism says what? That in our society, anything and everything that is happening, okay, is happening for material gain. And whatever you think history is made up of such events. History is made up of such events only. That is what historical materialism is. That throughout history, people are being fighting, struggling, creating chaos against each other for gain of material resources. Okay? It's the study of how society changes over time and how the economic and social conditions of a society determine its political, legal and ideological systems. Marx saw history as a series of epochs, each characterized by a particular mode of production and corresponding social relations. He believed that each mode of production gives rise to a ruling class which controls the means of production and exploits the working class. Exploitation of working class leads to class conflict, which drives historical change and develop of a new mode of production. So basically what happens? There is going to be a ruling class, there is going to be a working class. Ruling class is going to assert pressure on the working class to work more and more and more. there will be a threshold after which the working class will break their shields and rise up. And very famously in his book The Communist Manifesto, Marx has written, the workers of the world, unite, because what you have to lose except the shackles of your feet. Okay, so this comes from there, that there will be a time when there will be, like, there's a very famous saying that don't push anyone against the wall, because when you push someone against the wall, there is no going back, and if there is no going back, that person will retaliate. Even if you are more stronger, even if you'll win, but since there is nothing to go back, he will retaliate, he will punch, और एक आध मुक्का तो लग ही जाएगा ना. तो अगर स्पेस है तो उसको भाग जाने दो, ठीक है. So this is what it is, that there will be a point when there will be nothing to lose, and these workers will rise up and they will remove the elite, and a government of the working class, the proletariat, will be formed. Marx only called this government as the dictatorship of the proletariat. Marx only called this government the dictatorship of the proletariat. He believed that each mode of production gives rise to a ruling class which controls the means of production and exploits the working class. Exploitation of the working class leads to a class conflict which drives historical changes and development of new modes of production. Now, ideology Marx called ideology itself as a false consciousness. We have just discussed few minutes back only that what opinion Marx had about ideology. He again and again mentioned this thing. Ideology is again just a tool in hands of the elite, which they use against the proletariat. Okay, and therefore what he calls ideology, false consciousness. What is consciousness? The conscience is basically the sense of goodwill, sense of correctness. That is conscience. Okay, false conscience means you having a sense of correctness, but later on you got to know that what I used to be correct is actually wrong. Okay, that is false consciousness. So he calls ideology as false consciousness. It is a concept which will make you have faith in it, but ultimately it doesn't mean anything. So that's false consciousness. Ideology as false consciousness, it refers to the idea that ideology serves to obscure the true nature of society and relationships of power, leading individuals to understand their own best interest and support the dominant ideology. Marx argued that this false consciousness arises because individuals internalize the dominant ideology, accepting it as their own and coming to believe in its validity. This leads to a distorted view of reality, and individuals understand their social and economic situation in terms of the dominant ideology rather than the objective facts in their life. Marx observed that the workers under capitalism may view their exploitation and oppression as a natural and inevitable aspect of life, accepting the dominant ideology that claimed that their low wages and poor working conditions are the result of their own personal failures. Look, what is happening? Ideologies can be defined in such a manner that someone who is working and they're like, this is like this only, it is my fault only, that is I'm not earning money. Okay, so once you have that sense, then you will never be able to grow, because you have almost made your peace with your sense of depression. Okay, and so that is what Marx is talking about, that ideologies are capable of doing it. While that's why you will see that Marx went to the extent of criticizing faiths, religion also. For example, he criticized Bible also, because in Bible also the idea is simple, that those who have gone through the stupendous difficulties of poverty in their life has a place secured in heaven. Those kind of ideas has been rejected by Marx, because Marx says that this is false hope given to the people, in the hope that as long as they know, okay fine, even if I am feeling very difficult, I am not able to earn 2 meals a day, still if I am living in this condition, it is good for me, because once I'll die, I'll go to a good place. Okay, so in the hope and expectation that I should remain poor, okay, so that I will earn a place in heaven. Okay, so that is also comes from here. In India also, for example, you will see scholars, the Indian Marxist scholars or post-colonial scholars like Kancha Elahi Shepherd and all. Kancha Elahi Shepherd is a post-colonial scholar. He also has written a lot on the caste issue, caste theory in India. He says, if you will see, Hanuman Chalisa is always taught to people. There is nothing like a Ram Chalisa. Okay, you do pray to Lord Ram, but the acceptance to Hanuman Chalisa is much more than Lord Ram also. Why? Why? Now, this is not me saying this. This is Kancha Elahi Shepherd. Shepherd says that because the ruling elite of the society understand that if you recite Hanuman Chalisa, it talks about Hanuman not only being capable, but also the sense of dependence of Hanuman on Sri Ram. Okay, the total sense of submission of Hanuman towards Ram. The more you recite it, you becomes like Hanuman. And the elite in the society want you to become like Hanuman. They don't want you to become Ram. Because if you become Ram, you'll beat them up. They want you to become Hanuman. Okay, so you will see that a lot of scholars have tried to analyze these things, and they have said that different ways ideologies can come in from different places. It can come from economic side, it can come from religious side, it can come from societal side, and this is just one such thing. Okay, for example, like one thing, like the same time of ideology comes in caste. You will see many a time you will see like the people who are in old ages and they are from scheduled caste, sometimes even when they very well know that there is no more differentiation and everyone has to be treated equally, still even they themselves will not wear the slippers inside someone else's house, or they will even try to sit on the floor in front of some people who they think belongs to the general category. Okay, so although there is no segregation, there will be nothing wrong happening to them, and what they are doing is actually only creating difficulty from them only. But now the issue is it has been put in their head already, and that is what Marx in a way is talking about, when you yourself had made peace with these kind of ideas, that this is how it is. Okay, so that's what he is talking about. Ideology as a false consciousness. Ideology also as the ideology of class domination. Ideology always is acted as a theory for class domination. Okay, now whether, like, obviously Marx, when he was alive, he once very famously said that, look, I am not a Marxist. When he wrote the book, people started accepting this idea, this guy is very good, like what he's saying. And by that time itself, obviously when he was alive, before 1883 itself, a lot of people became his follower. And he famously said that, look, I am not a Marxist. You might be, I am not. So I can change my opinion. Okay, so he said famously that ideologies are always used for class domination. Okay, anywhere and everywhere. So Marx theory views ideology as a tool used by the ruling class to maintain their dominance in the society. Ideas such as individualism, meritocracy, and the notion of free market economy are seen as ideologies that serve the interests of the ruling class. Now, this is very important. Ideas such as individualism. Now, you might say that individualism is a good idea. Okay, but Marx will say that no, what you are thinking as individualism is not even individualism. Because, for example, understand it other way around. Suppose you have an assistant and you have to make a decision, and your assistant came up with the question and gave you 3 options, and you chose option number B. So is your process or is your decision independent? Why? Suppose he came up with 3 options, he came up with a question has 3 options, and you chose option number 2, option number B on your own. Okay, so is your answer, suggestion, or your selection is independent or not? Someone? Someone? So the idea is simple. You don't even know that whether there were 3 options only. Maybe there were 5 options. Your assistant only gave you 3 options. Okay. So the idea is, even individualism is a constructed notion within the realm of the state. You can be all individualistic, all your liberty are constrained by the individual, by the authority of the state. So the complete individuality you will never be allowed to achieve, first of all. Then similarly, the whole concept of meritocracy is also like this only. Like meritocracy is something which is much appreciated, right? What is wrong in meritocracy? Think about it. What is wrong in meritocracy? Like, no idea? Yeah. So understand this thing. Suppose you got first rank throughout studies from first class till 12th class, and then you gave an exam and you got into IIT, and then also you gave an exam in UPSC and you got rank 1 in UPSC also, and yeah, great. But 99% of the time, if this is happening, then we'll go into your background and we'll get to know that your parents might also be a serving officers, or you will, it never really happens that you will never find someone like, okay, this is a boy who was born and brought up in Kala Handi and then he got the rank 2 in UPSC CSE. Never. Okay, you'll always find that, okay, this guy has been born and brought up and lived in a very standard household, and his parents were well-to-do, economically prosperous, resourceful, and the most important thing, they precisely knew how to train their kid. Okay, so what we call as meritocracy, it's nothing but correct set of training, nothing else. Now, how it works? It works like this. I always say this thing, that you will hear all the time that, okay, that back in the day, like Microsoft, Google, all these companies used to come and take students from their final year of the college, and whenever that used to happen in our college, there will always be like, this student got 2 crore of package and this student got 3 crore of package, this student got 1 crore of package, and blah, and all the news were there. And suppose like tomorrow, why these companies are taking you? Because they need a special set of skill which they need to for their work, and you have that skill. Now tomorrow, imagine they are not looking for that set of skill. Suppose tomorrow Google comes and Google says that we are working on making a new form of artificial intelligent robot, and we need people who are very well capable of using sticks and push tires on the road using sticks. So all the kids who are living on the sides of Yamuna, road पे रहने वाले बच्चे होते हैं ना यमुना के किनारे, those will be called as meritorious, and उनको सबको 1-1 करोड़ का पैकेज मिल जाएगा. Fine. So it's not about your capability, it is about demand and supply. Okay, and your family and their resources, which made sure that you are on the correct path to know those specific skill set which will be demanded. If you are knowledgeable enough to understand and predict that 25 years down from now, what set of skills which will be most appreciated in the society, you can train a kid in that particular profession from now, and 25 years from now, that kid will become a meritorious student. Obviously, some things are there, that what's the IQ of the student, what's the EQ of the student, and whether that kid will become Elon Musk or not, you cannot say. but surely you can make that person in top 1% of the world. Okay, so because of this, the meritocracy is nothing but the adequate infrastructure availability and the resource allocation in favor of a student. That is what meritocracy is. Okay, and therefore he also criticizes this very notion of meritocracy. He is not criticizing the people who are meritorious. Those are very important people. They are basically the people who are guiding the society. There's nothing wrong with the people who are meritorious. They have done nothing wrong. They have actually given all their heart and soul and everything to learn those skill sets. They are excellent people. But this appreciation of meritocracy, that is what is wrong. Okay. Now, there are further modern scholars who have analyzed this thing. Like, for example, you might have heard about Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen is an Indian scholar only. So, he was actually an economist, and now obviously since his work has become so big, he is considered one of the major philosophers of the world. He is like 92, 93 year old, and he is considered one of the biggest philosophers, and in a way his name is taken in the same breath as like old scholars, Marx and all. Like, okay, in modern times Marx can be that person. And he says that the focus of the countries or the governments around the world should be on the capability building. He uses the word capability building, and he says that instead of meritocracy, instead of trying to rank everyone, okay, government should focus on how we can build capability of individuals, because that is the effective thing. Because one can fail, one can pass one exam, that's a totally different thing. It happens. Okay, I know people who have scored like 10 marks more and are in service IAS officer. I know the people who scored 15-20 marks less and all still having chai on the roadside here only. Fine. So meritocracy is a very dwindling concept. So it just took a lot longer time to explain that, but you need to understand. So concept like individualism, meritocracy, all these things which are much appreciated by all the sides, even in modern society, is something which is criticized by Marx. Okay, the whole concept of free market is also criticized, but criticism of free market is for different reasoning. He says that look, nothing is free like in free market. Effectively, there is an elite who are only deciding how this market works. Okay, so the notion of a free market economy are seen as ideologies that serve the interests of the ruling class only by convincing the working class that their situation is a result of their own personal shortcoming. Okay, now meritocracy only, we always used to give an example that, like, for example, right now who is the Chief Justice? D.Y. Chandrachud. His father was Y.V. Chandrachud. He was also the Chief Justice. Now, there are 1.43 billion people. Do you really think just by sheer luck and the merit of an individual that one person became the Chief Justice of India and his son also became the Chief Justice of India? Is it possible? Like, you try to use permutation combination and you try to calculate the predictability. It is 1 by 1.43 billion. Okay, so I'm not saying that D.Y. Chandrachud has been in the office through corrupt means. No, he's an excellent judge. No one can deny that. But the resource allocation, okay, and the correct direction which must have been shown to him when he was in the growing phase, when he must have started his legal practice, that has helped him to grow into such a situation. Then he became the most apt person to be appointed as the Chief Justice. So I'm not saying that Mr. Chandrachud has done anything wrong. He has best of his capability, has worked very hard. But the situation has been such that he became the Chief Justice. But that is not the best way to have the Chief Justice. Okay. So yeah. Now the next idea is ideology as a material force. Ideology as what? Gold? Okay. I will just do two more things and then we'll close. No. Three more things and I'll try to complete it faster. Okay. Ideology as a material force. Okay. Marx viewed ideology as a material force in the sense that it has real effect in society and on people's consciousness. According to Marx, ideology is not simply a set of beliefs or ideas, but a powerful tool used by the ruling class to maintain their dominance over society. Theorists posit that ideology is not just a reflection of economic reality, but a material force. Marx observed that the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. Ideology as a superstructure. Again, what are ideologies? These are also superstructure. There is no place for them in the base structure. Ideology as a cultural tool. Sorry, this is very important. Marx believed that ideology was a cultural tool used by those in power to maintain their dominance over the working class. Marx's personal observation was shaped by his experiences living in 19th century Europe. We explained this thing, like we discussed this thing, that he was living in England, basically he was German and all that. Marx argued that this dominant ideology was not a neutral or objective reflection of reality, but rather a distorted view that served the interests of the ruling class. He believed that the working class needed to become aware of this manipulation and develop their own class consciousness, which would enable them to challenge the dominant ideology. Ideology as a means of socialization. Marx saw ideology as means of socialization whereby the dominant ideology of a society is transmitted to individuals through cultural institutions like education, religion and media. In Marx's view, these institutions are controlled by the ruling class. Marx believed that the dominant ideology served to socialize individuals into accepting the existing social and economic order, and that process of socialization was a key factor in maintaining the status quo. According to Marx, ideology was not a neutral or objective reflection of reality, but rather a distorted view that serves the interest of the ruling elite alone. He believed that the working class need to become aware of the manipulation and develop their own class consciousness, which would enable them to challenge the dominant ideology and create a more just and equitable society. Fine? So, done. That's it. After this, we have to do concept of alienation. We'll do it in the next lecture because otherwise you'll die. Okay? Yeah, sure. So that will be all. Okay. Thank you and have a nice day. Okay. We'll catch up tomorrow after this. Any question, Walter?